Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ripple Intent podcast. This is one of your hosts, Kyle Makrowski, and with me, as always, is the co-host, Jon Grant. Jon, please go ahead and say hi.
Hey, listeners. Great to have you with us again.
Good to see everybody on our podcast. We always enjoy that. So, this has been a long time coming. We've been doing this podcast for a while, and there's somebody that I've always wanted to have on our show with us and talk to and explore a lot of things. And a big reason for that is because many years ago, he was the one who listened to me complain at a breakfast meeting about our industry and what we do and how people in the project management role and in the owner side and a whole bunch of other things just don't have the opportunity to go learn how to do their projects and do their work and do what they do so well better from a people point of view. And as I was going on and on complaining about this, he said, well, why don't you do something about it? And I took that very much to heart because I believed he was very serious about it. And so lo and behold, that's actually one of the originations of Ripple Intent was his challenge that breakfast of let's do something. And we did together. And so Mike Wood has been kind enough to join us this morning for our conversation. And so a little bit background on Mike. So Mike has been a leader in the AEC industry healthcare space for decades. He is involved with all kinds of professional organizations, including a founding member of IFMA. He's been involved with ASHE and CAHED and HCC and a whole bunch of other acronyms that a lot of people in the healthcare and construction space will know. And those who are not, don't worry. There's just a lot. He's very influential. He knows a lot of people. He's been doing a lot of things, and he's an awesome leader. And I'm just really happy to have him for our conversation today. So welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Kyle and Jon. Not sure I could live up to those accolades, but thank you. Got a lot of acronym soup going.
Absolutely. I could go on and on. I mean, you've been involved in so many things and so influential in so many things. And it's just, it still continues to amaze me just how you find the time to do all those things and do the job that you do.
Thank you. Time is one of those finite elements that I was blessed with. I fell ill from a patient in 1983, and when I recovered from that process, I realized that our time here can be driven by mission or passion or indifference. I chose the mission and passion route.
That you did. So, okay, you gotta share on that a little bit, the mission and passion route, because that's going to really be a lot of our conversation today. Because geez, I mean, that was, what did you say, 1983?
1983.
Yeah. 1983. So what were you doing in 83?
I was actually running the cath lab, working in the ED department weekends from Friday nights, 3 p.m. till Monday morning, 7 a.m. I was the ED doc in charge of the St. Vincent's Hospital, Beaverton, Oregon, ED during that time. And then during the week, I ran the cath lab. So I was doing what they considered at the time non-invasive cardiology catheterization studies. We were doing about 2,200 a year. Give you an idea of volume. The short version is I was the unfortunate recipient of encephalitis from a patient that came through the emergency department, and we processed through a cath lab and then into surgery. As a result of that, I spent 64 days in a coma, woke up emaciated and a very different individual, and had to relearn how to do all body functions, from walking, eating, speaking, you name it. And as a part of that recovery, I realized how lucky I was to still be alive, and really turned my life from being centered more on me, quite frankly, into being centered by mission and passion. My mission is to help and serve others, by far, and the passion behind it, is my little energy machine, as you've noted. But I can't seem to turn it off unless I'm asleep. So I try, whether it's hiking in the hills or motorcycling or, running exotic cars down 2-lane roads, or leading groups, walking project sites. I bring passion that I just cannot turn that switch off. I've tried. My wife Joy tells me you got to slow that knob down to like 0 or 1 sometimes, and I don't even know it has a 0 or 1 position. I think you just turn it all the way to the right and away it goes. So.
I mean, yeah, it's you mentioned you still hike quite a bit, right? Or do you still get away? Because I know when we first met, you were doing your annual trip to Durango.
Yes, I do. It is. I'm kind of like that cartoon character. I can go really, really fast for a certain period of time, and then I need to hit the wall and take me time. I'm a massive introvert, believe it or not. And I need that time for me to regenerate, re-energize, and really to process and do an introverted or introspective look at either phrases I've said, people I've interacted with, things that I need to do a little bit differently next time, and really take a hard, conversation with me. As you know, and others who know me well know, I do most of those solo, just simply to shut off the other noise.
I was just telling somebody the other day, they were asking, now it's snowing here. It's just that time of year where it's snowing and the mountains are covered, and it's an awesome time to get up in the mountains and do some hiking and snowshoeing and all that stuff. And people that I was sharing this with last week were asking, oh, so you do this with like a group? Do you go with your family? And I'm like, no. No. And if my kids come with, you can chat for a few minutes, but for most of the time, just shut up. All right. We don't need to talk. We can be here, but we don't have to talk. And so I totally appreciate what you're sharing. It's the time where I'm in my head, but I'm outside and I'm in nature, and I'm good with that.
Yeah. Well, I'll share a real quick anecdote, but very much, as most people who know me well know that I'm very faith-based. And for me, whether you call that spirit or your presence or your higher self or God, God talks to me a lot when I am in that mode. And that's when I can be quiet and be in that reception, listening mode. I'll share one quick anecdote. Not so many years ago, I took a short motorcycle trip up to Rapid City and back, actually Custer State Park. Anybody knows that. It's about a 6-hour ride. Well, about the first 10 minutes, I turned on the music and the headset and the helmet and thought that was pretty cool. And I got bored with the song. I turned it off. I think for 4 or 5 days, that was it. That was the only other noise. Me, the motorcycle, the road, and this voice talking to me.
Wow. Well, Mike, I know, the passion you talk about, it's so readily evident for anyone who meets you. You and I met a couple of years ago through Ripple Intent, and I could feel it right off the bat. You have this magnetic draw about you that just pulls people in. It's infectious, right? So like the people part, the people first approach you have just jumps out. And so it was one of the things that kind of caught my attention right off the bat. And I'm like, well, this is a person to really pay attention to, because you're living heart forward, and it makes a difference. So I love, to me, you were a great example of how you kind of take that perspective on life and apply it in the workplace. So I love hearing the personal side too. I mean, this is just the warmth that you have is just amazing. I love who you are and how you show up. And I don't even know how much you recognize how you show up and the impact that you have on the people around you. But it's been very impactful for me. Every time we have a conversation, I walk away, feeling great about myself, because you do that. But then also I'm learning then how to take that and treat other people the same way. So,
wow, John, that's
thank
I'm
you.
blushing. I'm thoroughly blushing. A little bit at loss for words, but thank you. That was very kind and very gracious. Appreciate the comments.
Well,
Despite the technical things we do in our profession and the environment that we provide, the safe environment for care, at times when everyone, the family, the patient, at their very most vulnerable time in their life, I take that duty and that commitment to provide that safety very, very close to my heart, because I've been that patient. I was the person who was literally in a coma 64 days. I had no idea what somebody else was doing to my body, right? I had 2 out-of-body experiences. One I think I've described to a lot of people, but one was so distinct. When the first needle went into my back to get the sample for the spinal tap, I remember so distinctly the neurologist at that time turning sideways to the attending nurse and saying, "Call his wife, he's not going to survive." That was the moment for me. If everybody has a moment, right? That was the moment for me. I said some things that we're not supposed to say in a podcast, some language. I remember screaming some words above, watching myself being, treated from above, and saying, "That's not going to be me. I'm not going to go that way." And life has turned out very different. So I try to bring that to others, that this is a gift, and it does have a finite end. I don't know what it is. None of us do. But it has a finite end, and it is a gift, and we have to honor that gift. So now you got me choked up. I mean, come on, guys.
And we're just getting a little quiet. We're just processing and kind of working through things.
I'm blushing. I'm blushing.
But so though you weren't, and I've heard you tell this story multiple times, man. You weren't always that way, and I say always that way. It was much more heavy-handed, much more.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of us have gone through that in some way or shape or form. But I really love your story and your what happened that caused you to realize maybe my leadership style isn't quite what it needs to be.
That's putting it very mildly. I was recovering from that. I combined careers, if you will. I could no longer do medicine the way I wanted it. I picked up a nerve tremor I could not control. And coming out of that, I had, I'll call it business / other facility project management mentors that taught me the technical sides of the business, but I also really unknowingly at first adopted their style. And they were much more directive. They were much more, as Kyle, as you allude to, very heavy-handed. I was brash. I was very full of myself and my qualifications and some of the acronyms I had acquired at that time in my life. And I was very confident that I had all the right answers. And as I watched people's responses to that, I was just amazed. I mean, at first they respond pretty well, and that was, I'll call it the era of the time of work, if you will, in the mid to late 80s, where that was acceptable. People expected some of that. And then I really stepped back a few times and thought, wow, that is not the me. That's not my core. That is not who I am. What am I doing? Why am I doing that? I don't like the responses I'm getting. And quite frankly, I was embarrassed. There were so many conversations I walked away and thought, wow, your ego was out there, on a 20-foot plank. And I've never seen myself that way, but yet I saw myself. As I hiked or motorcycle riding or other things and reflected, definitely the voice in my head was like, wow, you need to be true to yourself and who you are. And if this is the style that this profession is creating, you need to leave the profession. you need to do something vastly different. And Kyle, as you know, I began a pursuit. And I'm sort of a student of life. I spent 22 years in some sort of school after high school, whether it was night school or day school or medical school or degrees, master's degrees, PhD degree, all those things. I'm a little bit of a student. So I started on a educational path, if you will. How can I not only change my own character, but how can I bring this to other people? So my pursuit had a title at the time called Organization Development, and really started opening books and listening and talking to other people and interacting, and realized that, at least for me, this was one of those pathways that I needed to learn, and I needed to learn a lot about how to be a better me and how to then share that with others as I learned it, observed it, and saw what responses other people had as they were leading with a different style. And really, really watched, observed, and mentored along some people that have really, really given me the gift.
So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think what's really important is so many people who meet you today, they for the first time, they're like, wow, this guy's awesome. He's amazing. He's great. He's good to work with. He's very down to earth. He's easy to talk to.
I'm going to look for that guy. I'm going to go look for him.
Yeah, you probably should. It's just like Jon was describing when he met you a few years back, and it was like, that's really cool. And what so many people, I think, overlook is what you just described. It's like I don't want to say that people don't, but I don't think they give a nod or credit to the whole process and work that it takes to get to that point. Some people, thank goodness, are born just naturally good people, easy to work with. They get it. But those people are so few and far between. I think by far, for the majority, you have to earn it. You have to work at it. You have to listen. You have to reflect. You have to self-understand. You have to put in the time, the energy, and recognize different things along the way where maybe I'm not as good as I think I am, or maybe what I'm doing is not working right, and I need to either to adjust, do a 180, whatever it is, tweak, improve. But all that takes it was a constant. And like you said, student in life, you continue to look for those opportunities to continue to improve. And I think so many people just don't give the respect, and I say the respect, they don't give a nod to the amount of effort it takes to do those things on a regular basis.
Well, I would agree. And I'll speak to that a little bit. I'll speak to it first in my own experience, because I can only speak a little bit, I guess, about others. But for me, I am a continuous student of life. Even the older I get, and thank you, Jon, for some of the gracious things you said, but not almost, on a daily basis, I really do practice self-awareness. I will replay conversations I've had. I had an interesting day yesterday. I spent a day on 4 different job sites in one of our markets. Phenomenal people, phenomenal work, phenomenal results. But as I walk away from each conversation, I realized I had opportunities I didn't take to tell those people in better words, how proud I am of them, of being on their team. Right. And giving them the credit that they deserve for what they've done and what they've guided and who they are and who they've become. Because almost in every case, I watch each of our project managers, our other leaders, if you will, grow as we finish, super positive projects or things that have challenges, right? Each of those steps creates growth and awareness. But I'm always, the older I get, it seems like I'm much more aware of it now, frankly, in the moment, instead of having to take a 600-mile motorcycle ride and realize, oh man, you really screwed that one up. Don't use that phrase again. Or when I walked away, I started to see the drop in somebody's face or countenance, instead of what I really wanted to leave was leave in high spirits, and leave them in high spirits. So I'm practicing it more, and it's more of top of mind than I ever thought. And as our industry suffers through kind of a retraction and a massive change, no matter which side of this business you're on, design, engineering, construction, planning, the use of capital, the choices we all have to now make on a daily basis about, I have 2 pieces of equipment down, which is more important for the critical, if you will, sustenance of life inside that facility. I'm reflecting more and more frequently about, how did I interact in that conversation? Was it positive? Did I leave the team, the people, despite the issue, did I leave them in a positive way? Did I express negativity when I shouldn't have? Did I come off in a different manner? So thanks, Kyle. I've become much more self-aware. And for me, I would say the journey's been a 30-year journey. It really has, pretty easily. And it's now stretching into, well, I'm going to do my math, John, so help me. It's 40 years. I realized that just 2 days ago, that it's been 40 and a half years for me. March.
Why are you asking John to help you with math?
Well, I don't have that manual calculator anymore. I have to use my cell phone. I
appreciate the fact that you assume an engineer is going to get the math going just off the top of my head.
Well, John,
frankly,
I can see it.
If you had really asked, I would have pulled up the calculator on my phone.
God bless you.
It is, it is interesting, because John and I get to work with all these people who are somewhere in that journey of self-awareness, and we get to work in all walks of life, in all professions. And what you're describing that you went through, and in one way is I can totally relate to it, because I, the same way, my reflection early on often happened on the long treks, the long bike rides, the moments of the long days of solitude, where the typical 8-hour progression would look something like 2 hours of convincing myself other people are jackasses, and then a few hours of, well, maybe they're not that bad, and then a few hours of, now I feel real guilty because I didn't do as much as I should have, and then 2 hours of, I'm gonna go fix this. Here's my action plan. And I can remember some of those days very clearly, and it really has, as time has passed, those bookends are kind of gone from what used to be. That those, the conviction of I'm right to I'm going to fix, or I'm going to do, or I, those things have really fallen off, and it really hyper focuses now. I say hyper, it focuses now more in the moment and week to week on the middle two, which is, what did I do? How did I impact others? And was my intent and my actions, was the way it was received? So it's a lot more of that constant self reflection, and then application, reflection, application, over and over and over. It's interesting to see how different people process it. I don't know how the extroverts make it work. I really don't. It's the external.
I'm amazed though. Some of them are just fantastic. They'll process right in front of you for the next 25 minutes. And then there's some that speed date themselves, right?
Yeah.
You can literally watch them change their technique live in front of you during the meeting. God bless them. It's kind of fun to watch. I work with a few of those who are masters at that. But
I was just watching, I was meeting with a couple of people yesterday, and one of them, he's totally the internal and going to do everything. And he's been having a hard time connecting with this other person. And I said, hey, I've known them both for a long time. And I said, well, first you got to understand that this guy over here, he's an external processor. You got to wait till he's done talking, and then you can figure out what his point is. If you're looking for the point right off the bat, you're going to get so frustrated and so confused, and kind of looked at me like, yeah, that's actually what's happening. And the other guy's like, yeah, that's a good way to describe me. I've known that, but I've never really put it in those words. And I was like, yeah, when I first met you, all you got to do is wait you out. It's really what it comes down to. Eventually you'll stop. And I'll be like, okay, so what was the point? And
That's
it's
good.
absolutely.
I currently work with a leader like that, and I love this person. I really do. What passion and energy this person brings. But yep, you put your watch down, you go, okay, 9 minutes, 45 seconds later, now we can get to it.
But if you
and they are
don't,
incredible at 9 minutes, 46 seconds, right?
if you don't, those people don't ever have the opportunity to do that, or they do it in a place where it goes unheard.
So, interesting. And John, you kind of alluded to this, but one of the skill sets I watched, a fantastic mentor of mine, her name is Barbara Robertson, if she's ever listens to this. Barbara, I love you for what you did. She was the most artful master of a chameleon leader in several different circumstances that I've ever seen, ever. She could walk into a room in 10 to 15 seconds. She knew the mood. She knew how she had to come off. She knew how she had to either lead with direction or lead by example or lead by listening or by following. And she would literally change technique. And as I worked alongside her for many years, I was like, wow, I am so bad at all of those things. I have got to learn. And so I just started asking Barbara, hey, how'd you do that? What did you do? What phrases? What goes through your head? What do you see in the room? How do you know that? What do you watch for? And I guess I became a pretty good student of hers. But yeah, it's for me at least, that awareness, Kyle, like you, it's become literally momentary. It's now become habit, and it's a habit that took many years to develop.
How do you go from that? I've got an agenda. I've got things to. So when you train or when you teach or when you educate, mentor people now, how do you help them transition from the I own this, I've got something to do? All these people are, I love this term, resources. They're all resources that help me accomplish the task or project or whatever it is that I've been saddled with. And so I am going to now drive that. And there's a transition between that I mentality, the world's about me, to the world's about us. And that's what I'm hearing you describe is when you're there in the moment, and what she helped you understand was some of those things. How do you help people begin that transition or that growth?
Boy, that's a really good question. I try to refer them to other resources. And honestly, I know, don't look at me, to get rid of some of that right? And here's my latest versions of some of those analogies. One's I'm going to plug a book, so be ready. And it's been out there a while. And I love these guys and their technique, and we're starting to use it a lot. It's called Extreme Ownership. And I'll leave it at that. Look it up. It's a return to kindergarten, but it's a fantastic primer, reminder of life. The other is a friend of mine, Waldo Waldman. You can look him up as well. Very simple. Ex-military pilot. Flew in, I don't know now, Waldo, 68 active missions, something like that. But one of his largest, if you will, analogies that I've taken over into the business world is you never fly solo. Ever. And the word I doesn't exist at, Mach 1 when lives are on the line and the people that you're paid to, fly an airplane and defend are on the ground by hundreds or thousands below you. You never fly solo. You've always got a wingman, or you are the wingman. And I never wins. Team always wins. So those are the two most current resources. But for me, it goes all the way back to Tom Peters, the theory of chaos, Peter Drucker, all the research that I started to do in the 80s around organization behaviors, success patterns. I've studied well over 500 leaders of success and to a person. And I can go all the way back to the inventor of Herman Miller, right? The original Max McGee. Max was all about, if you read his books, his story, it's about we. It's about team. And frankly, that was my pivot point. And I'll call it out. Patty Watley, if you're listening, thank you. She was a lady, fantastic nurse, in a user group meeting that called me to the carpet and told me in no uncertain terms, it's not about me. It's not about my direction. It's not about my decision. We have a team here, and by God, the team will do the best that we can. And that was the day that somebody figuratively hit me across the head, and it really resonated. And I walked away and I'm, wow, you are so right.
I remember early on, I think we got lunch at one point and you showed up, and the two books you're talking about from Max are back here somewhere behind me on my shelf, the Leadership as an Art and Leadership Jazz. And I remember you gave them to me, and I did read those and thought, who is this guy? Not Max, but you. I was like, why is this guy giving me these books? And it was I want to say the beginning, but for me, it was one of the opening moments of that transition from I to we. For me, it was, holy cow. So some guy who makes furniture and has been making furniture for years wrote a book about how to lead a company. And I'm like, it's a manufacturing company. How hard can it be? So again, back to my professed ignorance, it was helpful. And so as you were describing that, it brought that back to me of, yeah. So I think you're one of those leaders who unfortunately makes people read books.
One of my colleagues tells me all the time, she'll take the name, but she's an Audible person.
Yeah. Okay. So does that count in your opinion? Does listening to books on tape, that's dated, but is that the same? Does it count in your mind? Are you keeping score?
Well, I'm old enough that no. So Joy and I made a trip 1,300 miles about a year ago, and we listened to a book on tape, and I swear to God, I was going to pull that guy right out of the radio set somehow. So if anybody's listening, I'll skip to the bottom. Don't do Inferno in Audible. I mean, it created quite a marital. We're still in counseling over this. Audible books are great, but I'm a page flipper, and I'm from that age. I'm, a few decades up, right? And I always read something, and I breeze through it. I'm a quick reader, and then I'll go about 10 pages, and I'll go, hold it, go back. I'll read that phrase again because the author just said something else that connects to that. If you ever pick up a book I've read, it's got pages turned, torn, markings all over the place. I mean, it is the most destroyed book you'll ever pick up. I try to learn. I really try to learn. We're humans. We experience things. We say them in different ways, and it connects to us in a different way. Every time you say the same phrase, it's amazing. And I want to try to be the best collaborator, that I can, and pass and teach anything and everything somebody has given me as a gift, is to pass it on to somebody else. I'm a real believer in that if somebody gives you that gift, whether it's a phrase, a turn of events. I work with a colleague who is a master at delivering bad messages. Unbelievable. Every time I get in a conversation with him now, it's like I don't even care about the conversation. I'm really studying his technique, what the word he's using. And so can I take that gift and give it to other people that I work with? For me, it's about absorb it, process it, and then bring it on to somebody else. Jon, you were very gracious in your opening remarks, but that's my energy, right? That turns me up. That's when that little dial goes to 10, and I'm looking for number 11 or 12.
So, Mike, your humility is, right? So everything you've done, every question we've asked about you, other than it opening up to, how you are always reflecting, you deflect to everyone else and everyone around you. I love it. I love it. So I'm curious, right? With understanding yourself the way you do, how do you see your impact on other people? Like, are you, I'm wondering how aware you are of this.
Oh man, not very. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. And I've had some reflection lately on that, but when I hear someone using the same phrase, or I watch them use the same technique, or do it different, better, I begin to realize, oh my goodness, I do that too. And Jon, to your point, I have to turn around and go, okay, hold it. Did they learn that from me? And there's a moment of, wow, they could have. Holy cow. And I have staff that tell me this all the time. And if you're listening, thank you. Heather, Nancy, Scott, Todd, Matt, Emily.
Kyle is doing it again.
Go on and on. Mike,
totally.
Jason. They tell me all the time, I move so fast, I rarely see my own wake. That's life for me. God gives us such a limited time. I almost had that light shut off. And I actually just said this to one of my team members 2 days ago. They were talking about looking in the rearview mirror on an image or an issue that we're dealing with. And I was kind of humorous and very real for me. My car doesn't have a rearview mirror. I mean, I rarely use the darn thing other than if they're going to hit me in the rear end. That's the only thing I use it for. And I realized that that's a good analogy for my life. I don't have much of a rear view mirror in my life. I have so much yet to do. It's like, wow, how do you move? How do you get going? So.
Yeah, some would say you slowed down. I would not say that you slowed down. I would say that you are very intentional and very focused. If you were to look in that rearview mirror, my guess is that you would see, man, I spent a lot of time and energy running in circles, doing a lot of stuff that wasn't actually, I thought it was important, but it wasn't really important. And I think what I've seen you do is you've really narrowed that. I like you keep saying, the time is finite. The amount of energy that we have is certainly finite, and I'm going to be very intentional and choose where to put that. And it's gone from a very broad early on in your life to a very focused effort at this point. Yeah. And that is through, again, it's not like you can just flip that switch. I think you have to go through all of those things. You have to go through experience and life and reflection. And so even though you talk about the rearview mirror piece, that constant self-awareness, reflection, and study is what has allowed you to do that with intent and purpose. And so it's awesome. I would love to keep the conversation going because I think we could talk for a much longer time, but we are out of time. So I'm going to say thank you, Mike, for spending the time and sharing your insights and your wisdom with us today. And before you say, I don't have any wisdom and I didn't share anything and I want to thank 17 other people, I'm going to say, no, you can't do that, and just say thank you, seriously, for who you are and what you do and what you continue to do. And your impact goes so far beyond, I think, what you have any idea it might be. So really appreciate you and appreciate what you do for us. So close this out. Same old thing. You want to know more, go to rippleintent.org. Follow us on LinkedIn. We're all over there. We've got all kinds of events and, of course, plenty of other episodes of the podcast. So by all means, see where you can find us. And once again, we will wait for the next podcast to see you there. Have a good one. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Jon. Appreciate you.